that came up quite a bit. And like, yeah, I can talk about that on the podcast because there's so much that comes with it, but I could also talk about it right now. Nowadays, everybody's a breeder. Everybody wants to be a breeder, right? There is a very big difference between seed makers, pollen chuckers, and breeders. They are not the same thing. There is a big difference between those three people. Seed makers are people who make seeds so that they can run them. Maybe give them to their homeboys, whatever. They make seeds so that they don't have to buy seeds. They got two good plants, they want to cross them and grow the seeds out. They do it. Those are seed makers. Now, there's a very fine line between breeding and pollen chucking nowadays. Pollen chucking is taking other people's shit and crossing it together and then selling the seeds at a profit. Breeding is creating crosses, paying attention to the traits that the parents pass down, watching the progeny to see which plants carry which parental traits, making selections based on very strict criteria, hunting for specific things, testing your gear, making sure your germination rates are good, making sure the ratio of mutants is very low or none, making sure that herm rates are low, things like that. But paying attention to the progeny and making specific selections, stress testing and stuff, that is breeding. And that very fine line between the two comes in with breeders making specific selections, right? Breeders will take two specific plants that have specific traits and they'll cross them, whether it's hoping for something or using predictive breeding. Predictive breeding is using things like alleles and Mendelian charts to where you could take two plants, if you know those plants well enough, you can take two plants and cross them and you'll know what you're going to get. But a lot of people don't do that nowadays. I'll get into that another time. But breeders are taking, say they have a plant that's super vigorous. It grows way too fast. It gets too tall too quick, right? So they'll take that fast growing plant and they'll breed it with something that's slower growing in hopes to slow that growth rate down. And once they've accomplished that and they go through the progeny, they test the progeny and they hunt through the progeny and they see that, 70% of these plants grow at a good rate. It's not too vigorous. It's not too slow. Some of them are, the other 30% are either extremely vigorous or they're very slow growing, but 70% of those plants grow just right, which means they're not going to overgrow. So a 4-week veg isn't going to over veg and give you 3-foot plants, things like that. Making specific selections based on traits, desirable traits, and crossing those plants together, expecting a specific outcome, that is breeding, right? Making F2s and F3s, right, with specific selections. Like you hunted a brother and a sister from the F1s and you made the F2s based on their traits. Like say you select a male and a female from your F1s, right? And your male is slow growing, short, bushy, has trichomes and very thick branches. It's resilient to high heat. Say your female is short, bushy, very thick branches, and it's got insane frost, and the smell is unreal, plus it yields heavy. Now you've selected those two specific plants for their traits, and you cross them together, making F2s, right? So you're like, wow, these two plants together are probably going to make something great. So you cross those two together based on their traits. And then you select out of the F2s, a male and a female that have traits, and you make your F3s, and so on, right? And then if you want to back cross to the original parent, you can do that and try and lock in some of those traits. That's breeding. So that would be breeding. But then you have people who are pollen chucking, who are rushing the process. They're taking shortcuts because the faster they can make seeds, the faster they can sell seeds, the faster they can take your money. They don't want to do the work. They don't want to put the work in behind the shit to make it good. When people like that make these F2s and F3s or back crosses or anything like that, right? They'll take a male and a female from their F1s. Technically, unless you take two different crosses all the way to an F6 and create an IBL, an inbred line, and then breed those together, you're not really getting real F1s, right? Everything's just polyhybrids. But for conversation's sake, we'll say you cross this and this and you make your F1s, right? And they find a male that, oh, this male smells really good, but he's got super thin branches, fucking super tall, no lateral branches, just grows straight up super thin, right? But because these people do a stem rub on the male and it's so loud, and because this female is so pretty, I'm going to use that, and it's going to make these pretty loud plants, right? That's not how it works. Selecting a male based on stem rub is a terrible idea anyway. I cannot tell you how many times I've fucked up and selected males based on stem rubs because it was so loud. And when I used that male, the progeny was all garbage. When I could have selected a male that didn't even have a stem rub, but it had a perfect growth rate, great structure, super resilient, had everything you would want in a plant, but it didn't smell, so I didn't use it. Instead, I used the one that smelled, and I end up with fucked up seeds. So many people do that, and then they sell those seeds because they don't care. And there's so many people that do this. They make seeds, and they only pop a couple of them, and then they make these random ass selections, and they continue breeding. Like, you don't even know what those genetics are capable of producing. Right? If I make a cross, right, and I only pop 6, 8, 10 seeds, I don't know what those genetics are capable of producing. I can't make a selection based on that. I need to pop 30, 40, 50, 60 plus seeds. Then I can really see what those genetics are capable of producing. I can really see, okay, these are the mother has dominance in these. The father's traits are showing in these. These are a perfect 50-50 blend. And then this little percentage, these are the outliers. The ones that we really look for, that are all new, like shit you never seen before, super unique. You don't know where these traits came from. Those are what we look for. You can't do that with a couple seeds. But before anybody says anything, if you buy a pack of seeds, you absolutely can find a winner by just popping a couple seeds. Absolutely. But for breeding purposes, how can you make a selection if you're only popping, 6, 8, 10 seeds? You don't know what the genetics are capable of producing. You don't know what's mother dominant, what's father dominant, what's a 50-50 blend. You don't know what the outliers even look like. So how can somebody make a selection, a proper selection, and then continue furthering the line, making F2s and F3s, or even outcrossing to something else? How can you make a selection knowing that's the best of the best of the best from those seeds if you only pop a couple? So many people do this. Now, if you're not selling your seeds and you're just doing it for yourself, who cares, dude? Do whatever you want to do, right? But if you're making seeds to sell, people are spending their hard-earned money on that. They don't want to buy bullshit. And if you're not putting out the best product that you're capable of producing, then you're ripping them off. Unless you tell people off the jump, yo, not the best seeds, right? I could probably do a lot better, but hey, the risk is up to you. If you do that and they buy them, then by all means, whatever. But if you don't have the space to pop, 40, 50 seeds, whatever, pop 10. Select the best ones. Pop another 10. select the best ones. Pop another 10, select the best ones, and then run the best ones back and make your selections, right? But people don't want to take the time to do that. Why? Because it takes too long and they want immediate, instant gratification. And when people do that, because plenty of people do that, they make the seeds as fast as they can. They take shortcuts just so they can sell them, because the faster they can sell them, the faster they put money in their pocket, right? Because that's what matters, money, right? Integrity doesn't matter. And it's the end consumer who spends their hard-earned money on the seeds that ends up paying the price. I can't tell you how many people I've tried to educate and give knowledge to based on my experience, and breeders that I respect passing knowledge down to me. And I've tried to help others who I see are breeding and stuff like that, and they completely blow me off. They act like they know what they're doing, all this other shit, right? And they take shortcuts, and the end product ends up being really shitty. I've seen it a million times, dude, and those are pollen chuckers. At the end of the day, breeder integrity does still exist, right? But there's also the opposite end of that spectrum. People who truly don't give a fuck. What I will say is, if you are looking for a breeder to purchase seeds from, or you're looking for somebody whose genetics you'd like to run, look at how often they're dropping seeds. If they're dropping 8, 10, 12 crosses every single month, right? Or every 2 months they have, 16 new crosses in a box set with some fucking socks or whatever the fuck else, right? Chances are a lot of those crosses are just white labeled. It was stuff that didn't sell the last time, or the time before, or the time before that, or it's old seed stock and it's just renamed to something new, put in new packaging, and sold as something new and more exciting. Now, yeah, there are some that are, they have these massive facilities and 40 rooms are being used to breed at the same time, and 40 rooms are being used to test and hunt and select and all that shit. Yes, some of them are doing that, but the majority of them are not doing that, okay? If you're looking for quality breeders, not pollen chuckers, right? But quality breeders, my suggestion would be, and looking for breeders that still have integrity, right? Look for the people who are showing you the process, the people who are showing you the parents, the people who are showing you the progeny, the people who are keeping you updated every step of the way, the people who are showing you what's going on. Those are the people who will usually have the best genetics. In my experience, 20 plus years of doing this, those have been the best ones.